eventually going to get to the point where they have these large language models or these AIs that can do these day zero attacks on our nation. And they don't have the same like sort of social incentive structure if they're a communist country to protect and to
Mhm.
um, guard against these things. Are you not worried about what
I,
China's going to do?
I am worried, and I'm worried because you're going into a space of great power without fully defined boundaries. What Kissinger, and we talk about this in the book, the Genesis book is fundamentally about what happens to society with the arrival of this new intelligence. And the first book we did, Age of AI, was right before ChatGPT. So now everybody kind of understands how powerful these things are. We talked about it. Now you understand it. So once these things show up, who's going to run them? Who's going to be in charge? How will they be used? So, from my perspective, I believe, at the moment anyway, that China will behave relatively responsibly. And the reason is that it's not in their interest to have free speech. In every case in China, when they have a choice of giving freedom to their citizens or not, they choose non-freedom. And I know this because I spent all that time dealing with it. So it sure looks to me like the Chinese AI solution will be different from the West because of that fundamental bias against freedom of speech. Because these things are noisy, they make a lot of noise.
They'll probably still make AI weapons, though.
Well, on the weapon side, you have to assume that every new technology is ultimately strengthened in a war. The tank was invented in World War I. At the same time, you had the initial forms of airplanes. Much of the Second World War was an air campaign, which essentially built many, many things. And if you look at there's a book called Freedom's Forge about the American structure. According to the book, they ultimately got to the point where they could build 2 or 3 airplanes a day at scale. So in an emergency, nations have enormous power.
I get asked all the time if anyone's going to have a job left to do, because this is
Yes.
the disruption of intelligence. And whether it's people driving cars today, I mean, we saw the Tesla announcement of the robo taxis, whether it's accountants, lawyers, and everyone in between, or podcasters. Are we going to have jobs left?
Well, um, this question has been asked for 200 years. There were the Luddites here in Britain way back when. And inevitably, when these technologies come along, there's all these fears about them. Indeed, with the Luddites, there were riots and people, destroying the looms and all of this kind of stuff. But somehow we got through it. So my own view is that there will be a lot of job dislocation, but there will be a lot more jobs, not fewer jobs. And here's why. We have a demographic problem in the world, especially in the developed world, where we're not having enough children. That's well understood. Furthermore, we have a lot of older people, and the younger people have to take care of the older people, and they have to be more productive. If you have young people who need to be more productive, the best way to make them more productive is to give them more tools to make them more productive, whether it's a machinist that goes from a manual machine into a CNC machine, or in the more modern case of a knowledge worker who can achieve more objectives. We need that productivity group. If you look at Asia, which is the centerpiece of manufacturing, they have all this cheap labor. Well, it's not so cheap anymore. So do you know what they did? They added robotic assembly lines. So today, when you go to China in particular, it's also true in Japan and Korea, the manufacturing is largely done by robots. Why? Because their demographics are terrible and their cost of labor is too high. So the future is not fewer jobs. It's actually a lot of jobs that are unfilled with people who may have a job skill mismatch, which is why education is so important. Now, what are examples of jobs that go away? Automation has always gotten rid of jobs that are dangerous, physically dangerous, or ones which are essentially too repetitive and too boring for humans. I'll give you an example. Security guards. It makes sense that security guards would become robotic because it's hard to be a security guard. You fall asleep. You don't know quite what to. And these systems can be smart enough to be very, very good security. Now, these are important sources of income for these people. They're going to have to find another job. Another example, in the media, in Hollywood, everyone's concerned that AI is going to take over their jobs. All the evidence is the inverse, and here's why. The stars still get money. The producers still make money. They still distribute their movie. but their cost of making the movie is lower because they use, for example, synthetic backdrops, so they don't have to build the set. They can do synthetic makeup. Now, there are job losses there. So the people who make the set and do the makeup are going to have to go back into construction and personal care. By the way, in America, and I think it's true here, there's an enormous shortage of people who can do high quality craftsmanship, right? Those people will have jobs. They're just different, and they may not be in Los Angeles.
Am I going to have to interface with this technology? Am I going to have to get a Neuralink in my brain? Because you go over the subject of there being these sort of two species of humans, potentially, ones that do have a way to incorporate themselves more with artificial intelligence and those that don't. And if that is the case, what is the time horizon in your view of that happening?
I think Neuralink is much more speculative because you're dealing with direct brain connection, and nobody's going to drill on my brain until it needs it. Trust me. Mm-hmm. I suspect you feel the same. I guess my overall view is that you will not notice how much of your world has been co-opted by these technologies because they will produce greater delight. If you think about it, a lot of life is inconvenient. It's fix this, call this, make this happen. AI systems should make all that seamless. You should be able to wake up in the morning and have coffee and not have a care in the world and have the computer help you have a great day. This is true of everyone. Now, what happens to your profession? Well, as we said, no matter how good the computers are, people are going to want to care about other people. Another example, let's imagine you have Formula One and you have Formula One with humans in it, and then you have a robot Formula One, where the cars are driven by the equivalent of a robot. Mm-hmm. Is anyone going to go to the robotic Formula One? I don't think so, because of the drama, the human achievement, and so forth. Do you think that when they run the marathon here in London, they're going to have robots running with humans? Of course not, right? Of course the robots can run faster than humans. It's not interesting. What is interesting is to see human achievement. So I think the commentators who say, oh, there won't be any jobs, we won't care, I think they miss the point that we care a great deal about each other as human beings. We have opinions. You have a detailed opinion about me, having just met me right now, and I for you. We just are naturally set up. Your face, your mannerisms, and so forth. We can describe it all, right? The robot shows up as like, oh my God, what another robot? How boring.
Why is Sam Altman working on, the founder of OpenAI, one of the co-founders of OpenAI, working on universal basic income projects like WorldCoin then?
Well, WorldCoin is not the same thing as universal Bitcoin, universal basic income.